Hi, and welcome to the casting couch. Another casting couch. Woo! How fun is that? In 6 minutes, the oven gonna make some noise, but yeah, we just have to live with that. And you can hear the air conditioning. Yeah. So I hope you hear me and that the noise is not too horrible for you. So today we're gonna talk about requests, and I like requests and you like requests because it's your requests, right? So the request is OEM stuff that can be used on other cars than intended. And that can be a lot of things. It can be turbos. We have talked about turbos before, and there are a few good ones. If you want to run a little bit lower power, then yeah, whatever. If you don't want to run maximum power in your engine, there are a few good options. But more interesting might be transmissions and brakes, because you know that your car can never be faster than how much brakes you have, because the later you can brake, the more confident you can be in your braking and so on, the faster you will be. Yeah, this is for us that uses this round thing in front of us. You guys that think that 100 to 200 kilometers an hour is the coolest thing in the world, you can go fuck yourself, because that is bullshit. It's chimp activity. You just put a chimpanzee in your driver's seat and you tell him to push the throttle. Everyone can do that. That is nothing. It has nothing to do with cars. But for us that use this thing, we need brakes. And if we don't have that, our car will be slow as fuck. So I know that this is something that people think is difficult, but it is not. It is not. And people think that if they make some kind of bracket or adapter to fit a brake caliper on their car, maybe that brake caliper is not strong enough. Think again. This is the same thing that you have to have your 5 M14 or M12 wheel bolts or stud on each rim, and then your wheel bearing is bolted with 4 M10s on the back. So it's like, oh, a bolt or a nut is bad, you misplaced it, whatever, you have 4, and your best friend will just point and scream and like, oh, you don't have all the bolts. Who the fuck cares? The entire wheel assembly is bolted down with 4 M10s. So your brake caliper will sit where you put it if you don't use a millimeter of sheet metal. That's just how it is. So it's not especially scary, it's not difficult, and it is actually nothing other than easy. So how do we go around fitting some cooler, bigger, more efficient brakes on our car? First of all, we need to find some information about the brake discs, because we can use different offsets and so on. That is it doesn't matter so much, but if your brake disc has a smaller offset, so it is closer to your rim, it might hit the rim, right? So that we have to think about. And if the offset is too much, so it goes towards the car much more than original, it might hit the suspension. So if we are somewhat close to original, that is of course the best, and that's offset wise. Size wise, we need to find the biggest we can find. bolt pattern, it really doesn't matter, but if your car is a Mercedes and it's 512 in bolt pattern, it is good if the brake discs have 512, because you don't have to drill new holes and so on. They just fit. If the center hole is a little bit too small, you have to machine that, of course. But I mean, you're looking for discs that will fit somewhat bolt on, right? So we have done everything from Porsche Cayenne brake discs together with Audi A8 calipers on a 1978 Porsche 928 to oven. I think I have to open the lid and close it to get this to stop, because it's gonna beep in like a minute again. Yeah, it doesn't matter. So till putting Lamborghini brakes on some Corvette front ends and stuff like that. It's like everything works, everything is possible. Hang on. So don't cook in YouTube. That's what they say, right? And it's 6 minutes, that's what I told you. So, brake discs and brake calipers. Find something that fits decently, disc-wise. The caliper, you can take anything. The important thing is that you can find really good pads for it, like endless pads or EBC pads or something like that. Brake hoses, of course, you just go to your local hydraulic store and they will make some hoses for you. PTFE steel line hoses, and off you go. You need to measure and be really precise when you do your bracket thingy to hold your new caliper. So you have to have your disc and you have to bolt that disc into place, and then you have to put your caliper where you want it and measure and measure and measure, and then you have to measure 3 times more. And when you have done that and you have done a little bit of a drawing, you have that piece done in some way, laser cut, water cut, milled, whatever, it doesn't really matter, just have it done. That's the important thing. Some calipers are tapped, some are not, and on some cars they have to be tapped or not. So you can encounter problems like you have to have a thread in your caliper, but there is none. So then you should helicoil or something like that, so you get a really strong thread and you can torque it down properly. That's like my 5 cents. So because you have to have confidence in your brakes, and you can't have that if you have threaded it into the aluminum, for example. Or you can, but for me it's like you just helicoil it and be done with it. And I know that the helicoil sits really good when you put them in, but a drop or 2 of Loctite on that helicoil before you thread it in, and you will be able to take your new calipers on and off a few times without unthreading the helicoil. So there are a lot of parts on a lot of cars that can be mixed and matched, and if you drive a Mercedes, you can always look at the AMG series because they have big brakes, and you can find what kind of AMGs exist that is not like the newest super expensive AMG. But you say that you have a W21, right? Then you can look at AMGs 22, or maybe it had small discs, right? 210, 211, right? I mean, there's a lot of different AMG models, and you can just look at them all, get the specs for the discs, and see what fits the best for you. Caliper wise, you take what is good and cheap. That's and they have to fit somewhat on the diameter of your brake discs. So if your brake discs are 354 millimeters, I just took this number out of nowhere. No, but that's actually an AMG disc, 354 millimeters, and you find a caliper that sits on a 350-360 millimeter disc. Happy days, right? But if it fits on a 385 millimeter disc or sits on that originally, you might not have full contact on your new pads, and that can be a problem. It can also be a problem with other things, and if the caliper is too small, maybe the radius inside the caliper will be also too small and you cannot seat it over the disc properly. Also, width or thickness of the disc is important. It's not super important at all, but if your disc is 25 millimeters and the caliper originally sits on something that is 15, you might not be able to fit it. So then you need 2 new brake pads in there that you can take apart as much as you can and measure the distance yourself. But staying somewhat in the region of what it's mounted on originally is a good tip. That will help you a lot. So that's only brakes today. OEM shit that you can use on your car as upgrades. I think we're gonna do a few more of this because we need to speak transmissions at least, maybe something else. But yeah, there you have it. Mounting brakes on your car is not difficult. You don't have to be scared and you don't have to think about nothing else than trusting your caliper. So measure and measure and measure and look at the specs that the stuff has originally. And you will make that happen. And you can soon run your 354 millimeter discs on your W201. What discs are those? And what calipers should you choose? I have the recipe and you can buy the kit from me. Or you can check it up yourself because I just gave you half the information for free. So happy days. I'm gonna go grab some dinner and yeah, talk to you later. Bye.